Can I give birth near your house? Paris, my sister-in-law, suddenly showed up at our house and started saying something completely unexpected. Wait a minute. No way. Here isn't even your parents' house, Paris. Why should I have to take care of her before and after she gives birth? I tried desperately to refuse, but she wouldn't listen. I asked Kyle, not you. Hey Kyle, it's okay, right? Sure. My husband Kyle agreed without hesitation. Why do you get to decide that? This isn't your parents' house. It's my house too. But the two of them ignored me and kept talking as if I wasn't even there. Thanks, Kyle. By the way, I'll be moving in right away. With that, Paris pointed to the suitcase she had brought with her. That's impossible. We can't do that. I tried to stop them, but Kyle just looked at me with a serious face and asked, Why? We can't afford to take care of a pregnant woman. You can use the spare room. I'll move your stuff in. Thanks. You're the best, Kyle. I love you. Hey, wait a minute. They didn't listen to a word I said. As I watched the two of them celebrating, I started to feel dizzy. My name is Olivia. My two sons have grown up and moved out to start their own families, so now it's just me and Kyle living together. I met Kyle at work. After I graduated from college, I started working as a caregiver at a retirement home, and 2 years later, Kyle joined as a junior colleague. At that time, he was 21, having worked part-time jobs for 3 years after graduating from high school. I was 24. When I first saw Kyle, I thought, this guy will quit soon. I wasn't the only one. I heard later that everyone thought the same thing. The reason was his self-introduction. I don't know what I'm suited for, so I thought I'd give this a try. When Kyle said that, everyone was stunned. Even though he was starting a full-time job, his greeting showed no passion for caregiving. Caregiving isn't that easy. No one had a good impression of Kyle. One of my colleagues asked the boss when Kyle wasn't around, "Why did you hire him as a full-time employee?" The boss laughed and said, "The more passionate you are, the bigger the shock when reality doesn't match your expectations. I think someone like him might actually stick around longer. Besides, he's got a solid build and used to play baseball, so he must have good stamina. Perfect for a caregiving job." It's not just about stamina, though. While thinking that, I decided to observe his work. He wasn't particularly enthusiastic about his work, but he did what he was told. And at 21, he had the energy to work without showing any fatigue even after a night shift. The boss's prediction might be right after all. I started to see him in a slightly different light. One day, Kyle and I were on night duty together. While folding things in the office, I took the opportunity to ask him a question. "What did you do before this job?" "Worked in restaurants and moving companies. All part-time jobs." He answered matter-of-factly. "Then why did you apply for a full-time job here?" I asked directly. "I wanted to give my little sister some spending money." "Huh?" His unexpected answer made me doubt my ears. Ignoring me, he continued folding laundry. "How old is your sister?" "Paris is 7. We're 14 years apart." "Wow, that's quite a difference." "His sister is named Paris, huh?" He took a full-time job for his 7-year-old sister. "Isn't a 14-year age difference pretty amazing?" I wanted to ask more, but we hadn't really talked much before. I thought if I pushed too much, he might not like it, so I stopped asking questions. "Why do you work here, Olivia?" After a pause, he asked me this question. "Well, it started because my grandma was in a retirement home. She wanted to go home but couldn't live alone, so I wanted to give people like her a chance to enjoy their time. When I was in 5th grade, my grandpa passed away, and since then, Grandma lived alone. Because she lived in another state, we could only visit twice a year. She was fine while she was still healthy, but as she got older, living alone became too risky, so my parents decided to put her in a retirement home. We thought about having her live with us. But we were living in a 3rd-floor apartment without an elevator, not suitable for someone with weak legs. So, she ended up in a retirement home, but every time we visited, she'd say she wanted to go home soon. It wasn't that the retirement home was bad. But for Grandma, it wasn't a place where she could relax and enjoy herself. "Grandma, I'll come again soon." Whenever I said this and left, she always had tears in her eyes. Maybe she was just lonely because we were leaving. But her expression always left me feeling like I couldn't fully leave. People grow old and lose the ability to do things. Even then, if they can live each day enjoying it, that would be great. I wanted to provide such a place. That's why I started working in a retirement home. "Olivia, that's really admirable." Kyle had stopped what he was doing and was looking at me intently. "Admirable? I honestly chose this job for the paycheck. I didn't think about the meaning behind the work. But wanting to give Paris some spending money is also a great reason to work. Doing something for someone else is wonderful." His cheeks turned slightly red. I didn't expect to be praised, so I can't find the words right away. "But thank you. Well, I'll go do my rounds." With that, he quickly left the room. After that day, he started talking to me more often. He was probably happy to be accepted. "Next time, it's my sister's birthday. Can you help me pick a present?" He started asking me for help with things like this. Watching him earnestly choose a present for his sister was heartwarming. "Which would you like better, Olivia?" Kyle asked, holding out a pink and a purple hair clip. "I'd choose the purple one. But a 7-year-old girl might like the pink one." When I advised him, Kyle nodded and went to the checkout counter. After a while, Kyle came back with a big smile, holding 2 gift bags. "Thank you for today. This is for you." He handed me a gift. "Oh, thank you." I was so surprised to receive a gift myself that all I could do was thank him. "Well, see you tomorrow. We're on the early shift together." With that, he blushed and left. When I opened the gift, it was a purple hair clip. The other gift must be the matching pink clip. Matching with Paris? I couldn't help but smile. It didn't take long for us to start dating after that. Since Kyle is younger, I usually let things slide. When I compliment him, he genuinely smiles with joy, and when I cook for him, he eagerly eats everything without leaving a single bite. After dating for 3 years, we got married. Looking back, the time we were dating was the happiest. It feels like the gears of my life started to go off track from the day of the wedding. I learned after we started dating that Kyle's dad and Paris's mom had remarried with kids from previous marriages. That's why they're 14 years apart. I understood. And I didn't think much about it. My parents-in-law were friendly people who warmly welcomed me the first time I visited, easing my nerves with their smiles. However, the problem was Paris. He would always talk about her with a gentle smile. So I had built up this image of Paris in my mind. I imagined she would sweetly cuddle up to me too. But then, I noticed Paris peeking from behind the door, half hidden. She had big, bright eyes and fair skin, definitely cute. No wonder Kyle adored her. "Nice to meet you, Paris." I spoke to her. But she just scowled and ran off to her room without saying a word. "What?" I looked at him in surprise. She seemed upset, but maybe I was imagining things? I just greeted her. "She's probably just shy." "If that's the case, then fine." Kyle and my parents-in-law didn't seem concerned about Paris's behavior, so I decided not to worry about it either. Even though we visited my in-laws' house several times before the wedding, I never got to talk to Paris. I wanted to get to know her better before the wedding. I recall how Paris never looked me in the eye but would hug Kyle with a beaming smile. It felt like she was showing off to me. No, maybe I'm overthinking it. I reconsidered. But then, I remembered the way she looked up at Kyle with those big eyes and how she sweetly leaned into him, and I felt uneasy. What is this unsettling emotion? The source of this unease became clear at the wedding. I'm truly sorry. Right after the wedding, my parents-in-law rushed over to apologize to my parents. Paris didn't show up at our wedding. Didn't she come with you this morning? Kyle asked, and my parents-in-law lowered their heads. She left with a friend while we were getting ready. Was something bothering her? It seems like she was sad about your getting married. What? What does that mean? Kyle's mom, Rebecca, was being tactful, but does that mean Paris didn't want to acknowledge our marriage and skipped the ceremony? Does that mean she's been avoiding eye contact with me out of jealousy, not shyness, because she's jealous of me for taking Kyle away? My parents and I were taken aback by her outrageous behavior. But there was one more person acting out of line. I didn't notice Paris's feelings. I'll go home and talk to her. I'm staying at my parents' house tonight, so Olivia, you go home first. What? Spending the wedding night alone? I frantically asked Kyle to confirm. Yeah. You stay alone when I work night shifts, don't you? It's no different. Kyle said it without a hint of hesitation. Since there were people around, I decided not to say more, but from that moment, I felt my vision of a happy life starting to slip away. The year after we got married, our first child was born, and then 2 years later, our second child came along. Watching my children grow brought me immense joy. However, I also had my concerns at that time. It was Kyle. When our second child was born, Kyle quit his job. Olivia, you want to keep working at this job, right? I'll be the stay-at-home dad until the kids start school. My boss had assured me that I could be exempt from night shifts while my children were young, so I thought we could manage both work and family life. I told Kyle about this, but he didn't agree. I want to be there to see the kids grow up close, he said, and he quit his job somewhat forcibly. In the end, I realized he just wanted to use the children as an excuse to quit his caregiving job. Kyle became a stay-at-home dad as he said he would, taking care of everything around the house, but his constant presence at home made me uneasy. Raising 2 kids requires a fair amount of money. I hinted at him to find a job. I know. I'll look for a job with a good work-life balance. When the children started kindergarten, he finally began job hunting. However, he had no intention of working full-time. He would start part-time jobs only to quit after a few months. He would justify his job hopping by complaining that the work didn't align with what he wanted or wasn't family-friendly enough. I'm working flexibly so that you, Olivia, can work as much as you want. Eventually, he even started boasting like this. I was utterly exasperated and quietly resolved that I had to continue being the primary breadwinner. The unease I started to feel towards Kyle turned into something more definite due to a certain incident. All right, let's buy a house. One day, he declared. Our children, now in elementary school, cheered and started clamoring about wanting their own rooms or a backyard big enough for basketball. I whispered to Kyle, who still didn't have a stable job, half in disbelief. We don't have that kind of money. Everyone buys houses with mortgages. Since we're already paying rent, it won't change our expenses, Kyle said easily. But no, a mortgage is debt. It accrues interest, and I didn't want to be tied down by it for decades to come. Especially with no guarantee that he would get a steady job in the future. I consulted my parents-in-law. "This area is good, right? Why not just live with us?" To my surprise, they suggested moving in together. Their house was spacious enough for 6 people. Moreover, it had a yard, just as the kids wanted. My parents-in-law were kind people, so I had no problem living with them, but Kyle refused. "I want my own house." Then my parents-in-law proposed passing down their house to us. "Then why don't the 4 of you live here? It's too big for just the 2 of us anyway. We can move somewhere more convenient." However, he rejected this idea too. "I want a brand new house. I've always dreamed of buying a house once I got married and had kids." Kyle's eyes sparkled. If he had such a dream, he should have gotten a stable job and saved money. I thought this to myself, but kept quiet to avoid a fight. Taking advantage of my silence, Kyle began house hunting on his own and found a newly built house within our budget. "How about this? It's pretty nice, right?" The children were thrilled when we went to see the house together. The property was close to the sea, which meant there were various concerns and the car would rust, but it had a garden and was quite a good deal. But the price? The real estate agent was kind enough to create a repayment plan for the loan. A 30-year loan with a monthly repayment of $800. It's not much different from the rent we're paying now, so this might work. I started to feel a bit optimistic. We decided to apply for a mortgage from the bank. However, 2 weeks later, I came home to find Kyle looking utterly dejected. "What's wrong?" "We failed the mortgage application." "What?" When I asked, it turned out that since Kyle didn't have a steady job, they wouldn't lend us the money. It made sense when I thought about it. "I'll get a steady job, so can we reapply, Olivia?" Buying a house was Kyle's dream, so I thought he should handle it. But our kids also pleaded, so I reluctantly applied for the mortgage. Having worked as a full-time employee for 12 years after graduating from college, I passed the loan application with no trouble. On the condition that Kyle would get a steady job, we started our new life in a newly built house by the sea. Time passed, and I am now 54 years old. Our 2 sons have become independent, and I've recently become a manager at my company, which means no more night shifts, and I finally have some time for myself. What a view. I realized I had been watching the sea for an hour. The sea from the balcony. Even though we've lived here for 20 years, I can count on one hand how many times I've been able to relax and watch the sea like this. Kyle did get a steady job as promised, but he quit as soon as our sons became adults. "My duty as a parent is done," Kyle said confidently, leaving both our children and me speechless. We still have over 10 years left on the mortgage. We need to repaint the exterior soon, and owning a house means ongoing expenses. But there's no point in telling him that now. After quitting his job, Kyle decided to work part-time and try to earn money through the latest social media trends, but I'm not counting on it. "I'll cover the living expenses and the mortgage. But you have to take care of his personal expenses and the gifts he insists on giving to Paris." That was the arrangement. Why did I marry this man? I wondered as I looked out over the vast ocean. Just then, the doorbell rang. "Coming." I hurried to open the door and found Paris standing there with a suitcase. The moment she saw my face, Paris visibly frowned. "Where's Kyle?" "He's at the market working a part-time job." "Kyle's working at the market?" "Olivia, that's awful." With that, Paris rudely walked into the house. "No, it's because you demand unnecessary luxury bags that he has to work." It's been 2 years since I last saw Paris, and she's still just as brazen. At 37, she still openly shows her disdain for me, Kyle's wife. Even though her parents-in-law were good people, why did the siblings turn out like this? I noticed Paris' belly. She was wearing a loose dress, but it was clear her belly was sticking out. Is she pregnant? But Paris isn't married. Looking at her shoes, she usually wore stylish high heels, but today she was in sneakers. I was very curious, but it's not something I should ask about. Just then, Kyle came home. Oh. Paris. Long time no see. How's the baby? Baby. So Paris is pregnant. So Kyle, when did you find out Paris was pregnant? And what about the marriage? Am I the only one who doesn't know, or are you already married? I had so many questions, but neither of them paid any attention to me and continued their conversation. It's going well. I came to ask Kyle for a favor today. Kyle softened his expression when Paris mentioned a favor. Can I give birth near this house? What? Wait, hold on a second. No, you can't. This isn't Paris's family home. Why should I have to take care of Paris during her pregnancy and after? When I hurriedly shouted this, Paris glared at me. I asked my bro, not you. Right, Kyle, it's okay, right? Yeah, it's fine. Kyle agreed without hesitation. Wait a minute. Why are you deciding this on your own? This isn't your family home. It's my house too. Even if you say that, Dad and Mom are gone now, and there's no family home anymore. It's natural for me to take care of my sister. Logan passed away 3 years ago, and Rebecca 1 year ago due to illness, and the family home was sold, so it's no longer there. But why should I have to take care of pregnant Paris? I wanted to stop it by any means. I just found out today that Paris is pregnant. Who is her husband? If she's worried about giving birth, she should do it at her husband's family's house. Paris looked a bit embarrassed and fell silent. It doesn't matter who the husband is. Anyway, Paris will stay here. I found this house. I decide. It absolutely matters who the husband is. But that's probably what it is. She doesn't know who the father is. So she has no one else to rely on and came to us. And another thing, I found this house, so I decide. Kyle's audacious remark made me furious. He only found it, couldn't even get the loan. I'm the one paying the mortgage. I had so many things to say to these unreasonable siblings that I didn't know where to start. Ignoring me, they continued their conversation. Thanks, Kyle. I'll move in right away. With that, Paris pointed to the suitcase she brought. That's impossible, I can't allow that. I desperately tried to stop them, but Kyle replied with a straight face. Why? Because we can't afford to support a pregnant woman. We have a spare kids' room, you can use that. I'll move your stuff in. Thank you. You're so sweet, bro, I love you. Wait a minute. They completely ignored my opinion. Watching the two of them, excited and jubilant, made my head spin. Since our kids moved out, things have gotten a little better, but we really don't have any financial leeway. It's all because Kyle quit his job without any notice. Especially when our kids went to college, it was financially tough. Thanks to that, our savings are nearly gone, and we have to start saving for retirement bit by bit. I pay for the mortgage and living expenses, so Kyle probably doesn't know how tight our finances are. And now we have to house a pregnant woman. Of course, I was angry at Paris, but even more so at Kyle, who had always left the household finances to me, pursued his own desires, and now was trying to increase my burdens once again. However, this was just the beginning. Paris arrogantly took over the living room sofa and used our things without permission. This cheap shampoo doesn't suit my skin. Kyle, go buy this for me. Paris often used other people's belongings without permission and complained, then made Kyle buy things she liked. Kyle seemed pleased to be relied upon by Paris. The more Kyle pampered her, the more Paris became emboldened. Olivia, isn't there not enough protein in this food? I need extra nutrition for the baby, and this feels like a personal attack on me. The room I'm using is dusty. Are you trying to give me a dust allergy? Paris's complaints about me grew worse each day. I really wanted to kick Paris out immediately, but she was pregnant, so that wasn't an option. If something went wrong and she had a miscarriage, it would be disastrous. The baby in her womb was innocent. I struggled to hide my anger towards Paris and endured as best as I could. But finally, an incident pushed my anger to the limit. One day, my beloved bag went missing. Kyle, have you seen my gold bag? Oh, I sold it. We need money for the baby, right? It was a brand name bag, so it sold for a good price. Kyle answered casually. Why did you sell it without asking me? You weren't using it, right? It's not about whether I used it or not. That bag was a gift from him for our wedding anniversary. There were only two things Kyle had given me, that bag and a purple hairpin he gave me before we started dating. I cherished both of these items deeply. Even with all the dissatisfaction, he was the one I chose. Remembering the feelings I had when he gave me those gifts helped me continue as his wife. Now that one of those items was gone, something inside me broke. I went to my room and took the purple hairpin out of the drawer. I don't need this anymore. I threw the hairpin into the trash and made a call to someone. On the weekend, Kyle and Paris were playing games since morning. While I was busy with household chores alone, the doorbell rang. Thank you for coming. I greeted the man who arrived. Then I led him to the living room. I have something to talk about with you both. Not now. I have nothing to say to Olivia. They were both engrossed in their game and didn't look my way. Excuse me. I'm lawyer Mark Davis. Seeing this, the lawyer Mark spoke to them. When they turned and looked at him in surprise, he smiled at them. Yes, the person I had called was a lawyer named Mark. To be honest, I had thought about divorcing Kyle many times before. I was financially independent, so I could get a divorce anytime. I had been preparing so that when the time came, the process would go smoothly. Can you sit down? Mark is busy, so let's hurry. Thanks to Mark's presence, they suspiciously sat down at the table. To get straight to the point, I plan to give this house to you both. What do you mean, give? This is Kyle's house, isn't it? Yeah. What are you talking about? I showed the laughing pair the deed of the house. This house is in my name. Huh? That can't be. Oh. Kyle finally remembered. When we bought the house, he couldn't get a mortgage because he didn't have a stable job, so the house was in my name. I don't get it, but this piece of paper doesn't matter, right? It does matter. What's written on this paper is a fact. Mark admonished the annoyed Paris. Then let's change the deed to both mine and Kyle's names. Since Olivia is offering it. Sure. But Kyle, the condition is that you divorce me. I placed the divorce papers, already filled out with my information, on the table. What? Kyle seemed to be in total shock, as if he never imagined I would consider divorce. He sat there in silence, looking completely dumbfounded. Paris nudged Kyle with her elbow. Isn't this great? No more interference. We can live together in this house, just the two of us. Come on, sign it already. Yeah, you're right. Kyle hesitated for a moment, but with Paris handing him the pen, he seemed to resolve himself and signed the divorce papers. Divorce finalized. In truth, I had been uncertain about going through with the divorce and was hoping Kyle would refuse, giving me a reason to reconsider. After all, I had once loved him. Though I couldn't accept Kyle's bizarre affection for Paris, I didn't hate everything about him. But watching him sign the papers at Paris's urging, I felt a sense of liberation. I placed a purple hair accessory on the table. This was something I had thrown away once before. When I discarded it, it felt like I was throwing away all memories of Kyle, so I retrieved it from the trash. "What's this ugly thing?" "Olivia, you have terrible taste." Paris sneered at the hair accessory. "Kyle had once painstakingly picked out a matching pink one to give you as a gift." I felt a bit sorry for Kyle, but he seemed to have no recollection of the hair accessory. It was clear that I was the only one who cherished those memories. Realizing this, I was able to completely sever my feelings for Kyle. "You both have agreed to the divorce. Now, let's discuss the matter of transferring the house title." From here, the lawyer took over the discussion, as it required professional knowledge. According to the lawyer, if the title was transferred to Kyle and Paris, I wouldn't need to pay any more on the mortgage. The payments would be the responsibility of those living in the house. There were about 10 years and $100,000 left on the mortgage. Since the title couldn't be transferred, they would need to either refinance or pay off the remaining $100,000 in a lump sum. Neither Kyle nor Paris had $100,000 in savings. However, refinancing required an approval process, and it was uncertain if Kyle and Paris, without stable jobs, would pass the review. What a mess. It all seemed like someone else's problem to me. There was no reason for me to stay there any longer, so I went to my room to get my suitcase. "Mark, please take care of the rest. I'll call you later." I decided to leave the remaining matters to the lawyer. "Olivia, can't we reconsider? I mean, please reconsider." Kyle finally seemed to grasp the situation, sweating nervously as he pleaded with me. Paris, on the other hand, glared at me and shouted, "Bringing a lawyer here, pulling stunts like this, you're so petty. I've always hated you for that. Bro was deceived by you all along. I never thought you would be such a person." As they yelled at my back, I walked out of the house without looking back. The place I headed to was a small apartment in the town where my eldest son Nate lived. When I arrived at the station, Nate and my younger son Oscar were waiting for me at the gate. "Thank you both for coming. We got divorced. You've been through a lot. Feel free to come over anytime. Now, it's time to live your life, Mom." I often discussed Kyle and Paris with my sons, and it was actually they who encouraged me to get a divorce. Thanks to my kind sons, I felt like I could face forward and live a new life. A month later, I received a call from my lawyer, Mark. As expected, Kyle and Paris, who didn't have steady jobs, couldn't get approved for the loan, so they had to use the money from selling the house to pay off the remaining loan. Luckily, the money from the sale slightly exceeded the loan balance, so it was possible to pay it off in full. "The loan is fully paid off, so you have nothing to worry about, Olivia." "Thank you. By the way, what about those two? They've moved into a cheap apartment. They'll have to work hard to make ends meet. I guess Kyle will be working hard for his little sister." Mark laughed as he said that. Absolutely right. I can only hope that the twisted love between the siblings will someday turn into mutual consideration for each other. After that, I didn't know how they were living or whether the baby had been born. As time passed, I stopped thinking about those two who had become strangers. One day, Nate said to me, "By the way, Dad called the other day. Is everything all right?" He was asking for money because he's starting a new business, but I firmly refused. How can he ask his own child for money? Doesn't he have any pride as a parent? I couldn't help but sigh. I wonder what the new business is. Who knows? I don't care. That's right, it's not our concern. It's a waste of time to think about those two. We've got a new life to enjoy, and there's no time to waste on pointless things. By the way, it looks like the baby is going to be a girl. Really? I'm so excited. Let me know if you need any help with anything. In a few months, a grandchild will be born, and I can't wait to enjoy my life from now on.